I received the divorce papers by email. I was still in the desert, dust on my boots, sweat in my eyes, sand in my teeth. 13 years of marriage ended with a PDF attachment. The subject line read, "Let's be adults about this." The message was just 3 sentences long. He had already filed the paperwork. He had already emptied our joint account. And he had already moved his new girlfriend into our home. I stared at the screen, numb. My name is Captain Marie Jensen, 41 years old. Logistics officer. 3rd tour. I'd been in Kandahar for 4 months when Thomas decided he was done waiting. I closed the laptop gently, almost like it might bite. Took a shower in the shared stall. Put on my uniform, reported for duty. Said nothing to anyone. That night, I sent one word back. Understood. No pleading, no questions, no fight, just the end. Staff Sergeant Luna, my tent mate, noticed. She was brushing her teeth when she looked over. "You okay?" she asked casually, not pushing. I nodded. "Some stuff back home." She didn't pry. In the military, we know when to give each other space. But the truth? I wasn't surprised, not really. 6 months before deployment, the signs were already there. Little things. Thomas stopped calling as often, stopped asking how my day went, started working late at the accounting firm, started going to the gym but never seemed to lose a pound or break a sweat. New clothes, new cologne, new passwords on his phone. I didn't accuse him. I'm not built for drama or chasing shadows. But I noticed. And I prepared. Not out of paranoia, out of instinct. I quietly rented a small storage unit, moved our marriage certificate, my VA benefits files, and the house deed, thankfully in my name thanks to my military loan, into that metal box. I tucked away my father's service medals, my mother's journals, opened a secondary bank account in a different branch, and diverted a modest part of my pay. Nothing suspicious. Just enough. Enough that I wouldn't be starting from scratch if the storm hit. I remember the day I left for deployment. He hugged me at the terminal and said, "Be safe, okay?" His voice was flat, his eyes dry, like he was saying goodbye to a coworker, not his wife. I should have known. But part of me hoped I was wrong. I wasn't. What he didn't know was, I never start wars. But I've survived 3, and I always finish them. Thomas and I met at a friend's backyard barbecue in 2010. I was home between deployments, staying with an old academy friend in Spokane. Thomas had just finished his MBA but ended up managing a local tax office. Less pressure, he said. We were married 8 months later. He said he admired my discipline, said he was proud of my service. But deep down, I don't think he ever understood it. His father was a retired insurance agent, his sister a pediatrician. They didn't get why someone like me would choose the military over a normal life. Thomas would sometimes ask, "When will you get a real job?" I'd just smile. The Army was more than a job. It was the only place I ever felt like I truly belonged. In 2014, we bought our first house. Nothing big. 3 bedrooms, small backyard, a quiet neighborhood. The mortgage was under my name thanks to the VA loan, but I added him to the deed, because that's what love was supposed to mean. Partnership, trust. My father passed a year after we married. Heart attack in the driveway clearing snow. My mom followed 3 years later, lung cancer, though she never smoked. They left me just enough to pay off our loans and breathe a little easier. I deployed 4 times during our marriage. Iraq twice, Afghanistan twice. Each time I returned, I could feel him drifting. A little more distant. A little more absent, like he was pretending to be someone he no longer remembered being. One night over dinner, I brought up the possibility of re-enlisting. He put down his fork and said, "I didn't sign up to be a military husband. I'm tired of being alone all the time." I got it. I really did. But I also knew that some people just aren't built to love a soldier. And maybe, just maybe, he never really was. By 2019, the cracks were showing. He got annoyed when I called during his game nights with the guys. Talked more about how his coworker Melissa had left her husband and was now living her best life. He started saying we had nothing in common, that I was changing. He stopped saying, "I miss you" after calls. Stopped asking when I'd be home. I suggested counseling. He said we were just going through a rough patch. Then came the weekend business trips, the gym membership, the new haircut, the new password on his iPad. I wanted to ask, wanted to confront him. But my dad always told me, don't swing unless you're sure of your target. So instead, I watched, and I prepared. Because in this life, you learn to trust your gut. And mine was screaming. 2 weeks after that cold email, I was sitting alone in the mess hall when my phone buzzed. A bank alert. Another withdrawal. $88,500. Almost everything that was left. I stared at the screen, fork frozen mid-air. The joint account balance? $22.37. Our savings? Gone. The $47,000 we built together vanished into an account I didn't recognize. I felt nothing. Not panic, not fury, just a strange quiet. That night, I called the bank from the base phone room. The woman on the other end was kind, but what she said confirmed everything I feared. Thomas had been moving money for weeks, little by little at first, then all at once. The big withdrawals began the day after I deployed. He waited until I was gone. That hallway outside the phone room felt like it was closing in. Laughter echoed from the other side, soldiers joking, calling home, talking to their kids. Life going on. Mine was unraveling. Wilson found me sitting alone outside the barracks. He sat next to me, didn't say a word for a long time, then finally asked, "You okay?" I trusted Wilson. He'd saved my life once in Kandahar, literally. So I told him about the accounts, the divorce, the boyfriend, the house. He didn't say, "You'll find someone better," or "he wasn't worth it." He just asked, "What's your move?" I didn't know yet, but I knew there would be one. That night I couldn't sleep. I pulled up our home security feed, something Thomas must have forgotten I had remote access to. There it was. A truck I didn't recognize in our driveway. A man I didn't know walking our dog, using my mug, wearing my sweatshirt. And Thomas laughing in the kitchen I had remodeled myself. Something shifted in me. Not rage. Something colder, sharper. Purpose. I made a list. Call James, my army buddy turned attorney. Check via loan terms. Contact Master Sergeant about emergency leave. Review the refinance documents Thomas once mentioned in passing. Lock down access to my military pension. This wasn't emotional anymore. This was tactical. At 5 a.m. before roll call, I emailed James. Subject line: Need legal help. Discreet and urgent. His reply came less than an hour later. Call me, secure line only. By the time I hung up, I wasn't sad anymore, not even hurt. I was ready. 2 months later, I was back on U.S. soil. I didn't tell Thomas, didn't text, didn't email. I checked into a motel in downtown Spokane under a different name. Quiet, controlled, like a recon mission. James and I met at a diner 10 miles outside town. He slid a thick folder across the table. Everything we discussed, bank statements, property records, and he pulled out a separate sheet. This. It was a refinance application with my signature. Only it wasn't mine. Wrong middle initial. The curves off. It was a forgery. He pulled $330,000 using your VA loan benefits. He needed your signature to do it, so he faked it. Oh, and he listed the boyfriend as a co-applicant. Jeremy Ryan. 2 DUIs. Fraud charge from 2019. I stared at the paper. What are my options? James looked at me seriously. Depends what you want. I didn't hesitate. I want what's mine, and I want them to learn what consequences feel like. James smiled. Then here's what we do. The next morning, I drove past the house. Thomas's truck was gone, but his car sat smug in the driveway. I didn't go in, didn't knock. Instead, I went straight to the bank. I met with the loan officer who approved the refinance. I showed him my military ID, then my driver's license, then the forged signature. His face drained of color. I need to report this immediately. Already filed a police report, I said. That night my phone buzzed. Thomas. Who've you been talking to at the bank? Jeremy said someone was asking questions. I didn't reply. The next day, I filed an official fraud contestation with the county clerk. I registered the property to prevent any changes without my physical presence. 2 days later, a voicemail. Mira, we need to talk. The bank called. What are you doing? If this is about the divorce, let's be adults about it. Those words again. Let's be adults about it. He had no idea that I had become the adult in this story. That afternoon, James called. Funds are frozen, but there's more. Your ex's boyfriend got pulled over in your truck, driving on a suspended license. They impounded it. And guess what else was in the truck? Prescription pads from the dental office where Thomas works. Blank. Nope, filled out. Police are involved. I sat on the motel bed staring at the wall. This was bigger than I expected. A part of me wanted to warn Thomas. Habit, maybe. But then I remembered the security feed. That man in my house, using my cup, my life. Number. This was the road he chose, and I was done shielding him. The next morning, I met with the bank's fraud investigator, Mr. Thompson. Wrinkled shirt, coffee stain, tired eyes. This happens more than you think, he said, spreading out the forged documents. Spouse deploys, other spouse takes liberties. What now? I asked. We've frozen the funds, but about half the money's already gone. Gone where? He hesitated. Technically, I'm not supposed to share. I cut him off. That was my house, my loan, my name was forged, my money was stolen. He slowly turned his screen toward me. Transfers over and over to someone named Daniel Spencer. Who's Daniel Spencer? Not our department. Ask your lawyer to subpoena the records. I called James immediately. An hour later, he called back. Got him, real estate agent, fast flips, cash deals. You're not going to like this. I already didn't. Turns out he's worked with Jeremy before, multiple times. 3 closed deals in 2 years, all from women divorcing deployed spouses. I sat on a park bench, the wind cold and sharp. This wasn't personal anymore. It was a pattern, a scam. They targeted you, Mira, James said quietly. They've done it before. You're not their first. And Becky. He paused. Maybe a victim, maybe not. But Jeremy, he knows what he's doing. I felt sick. It wasn't just betrayal, it was predation. That night, I got another message from Becky. Please call me. The bank said something about fraud. Jeremy's been arrested. I don't understand what's happening. I stared at the screen, then typed, "Who is Daniel Spencer?" Typing, stopped. Typing, stopped. Finally, "I don't know what you're talking about." $14,600, multiple transfers, house listing. No reply. Then, "It's not what you think." I turned off my phone. The next morning, James called. "FBI wants to meet. They've been watching Spencer and Jeremy for months. Your case may be the one that breaks it." I met them at their field office, Agent Patel and Agent Donovan. Calm, professional, dead serious. They recorded everything, took all my documents, reviewed the forged signatures, the hidden transfers, the home surveillance footage. "Your case shows clear organization," Agent Patel said, "and this isn't isolated. It's a conspiracy." "And Becky?" They exchanged glances, still evaluating her involvement. "Did she ever mention money issues? Plans to sell the house?" I remembered her saying we were house poor, how we should downsize, just small comments. Back then I thought she was stressed. Now I knew better. I promised not to contact Thomas or Jeremy. They needed time to build the case. That night my phone buzzed again. "Becky, we need to talk. In person. Meet me at Riverfront Park." I showed the text to James. He shook his head. "Don't go. Nothing good comes from that." "I won't," I said, "but I want to know what she's really doing today." At 9:30 the next morning, we watched from a car parked down the street. At 9:45, Becky left the house and drove, exactly where she said she would. 5 minutes later, a real estate car pulled into our driveway. Daniel Spencer. Jeremy stepped out to greet him. They went inside. "Should we go in?" James asked. I shook my head and held up my phone. I still have access to the security system. We watched, live, from my screen, Spencer taking photos. Jeremy pointing at the fireplace, the remodeled kitchen, the back deck I built. Then Spencer said it. "Should be listed by end of the week. Got a cash buyer already." "How much?" "List at $470. They'll offer $420. Everyone's happy." Jeremy laughed. "And the wife?" "She says he's making noise. Typical military. He'll settle to make it go away." I turned to James. "Are you recording this?" He already was. I forwarded the footage to Agent Patel with one line, "Happening now." 30 minutes later, the house was surrounded by FBI vehicles. We watched from down the block as Spencer and Jeremy were led out in cuffs. Patel called me personally. "Got them on tape. Wire fraud, conspiracy, attempting to sell stolen property. We'll need a formal statement." "You'll have it." Then she added, "Your wife, Becky, just showed up. Looks shocked, very distressed. What do you want us to do about her?" I stared down the street. Becky stood on our lawn, hands over her mouth, watching the life she tried to steal collapse in front of her. I said quietly, "I just want what's right." Jeremy and Spencer both took plea deals. The operations spanned 3 states. They'd targeted at least 11 military families. And I was the case that exposed them. Becky claimed ignorance. Said she thought I was hiding money. Said she didn't know it was illegal. Maybe she was lying. Maybe she was lying to herself. Either way, she signed a settlement, returned the money, gave up all rights to the house and my pension, admitted to the forgery. I didn't press charges. The divorce finalized quietly 6 months later. No more emails, no more drama. Just silence. A year after that, I sold the house. Bought a small cabin in Montana. 10 acres, a creek, no neighbors. Retired after 20 years of service. I got a dog, scout, started carpentry, just enough to keep my hands busy. One day I got a letter from a Navy wife in Fort Worth. You don't know me, but you saved our home. Thank you for fighting when it would have been easier to walk away. I pinned it to my fridge. Sometimes when the nights get too quiet, I read it again, and I remember that betrayal might break something inside you. But truth can build something even stronger, something no one can ever take from you again.